Previously on the Yum Yum podcast.
The Gaunt Belter will appear in the 6th season. That's my final statement and prediction. The Gaunt Belter will not only appear, but he'll open up the 6th season. You laugh now, bitch. He'll be there.
I want to be proven wrong. I want to be proven wrong.
Now Earthers know what it feels like to be Belter.
Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you doing?
All right.
Just all right, come on. You have a word that should be used here, which is...
I personally have a word.
Mm-hmm.
It's a word that I made up that's just for me.
Yeah, yum yum, that's it.
That's not mine, and you know it.
It's the people's. We gave it to all of them. We liberated it for you. No, I was going to say that you should feel vindicated.
Oh.
Because we are both vindicated. A special someone made a return in the episode we're discussing, and I specifically got laughed at by you last time when I said this someone would come back in this season, and then you said, I hope to be proven wrong. So there's another thing you should be feeling.
Well, I didn't think we would want to get into that right away.
This is what we call a little tease for what we're going to talk about in a moment. But I wanted to just get that off my chest because I would be lying if I am not going to say that I feel
delighted.
Fucking ecstatic to be back here to talk about The Expanse with you, Rachel. And we are going through the series The Expanse as first timers. We have not watched this before now, and we have hit the final stride of it. The last 6 episodes of the series is here.
5 more?
We've only got 5 more after this, and then it's done. It's dusted. And what a joy it has been. We have gone relatively unspoiled on the series, thanks to the people out there listening and supporting the podcast, being very wise with their words. Only 1 or 2 things have come up, and I will say, I don't know anything about this last season. Nothing has been given any indication to me. I don't know about you, other than just there's only 6 of them, which is honestly the downside. Like, I'm walking into the season with my head held low because how are they going to wrap stuff up in 6 episodes? And also just only 6? Only 6. Not
really, Amazon,
not even.
You only had money for 6.
Yeah. It's a bit of a bummer. But how about you inform us, Rachel? How about you make us a little bit wiser and let us know what the first episode of this season is all about and what it's called?
Strange dogs. The Rocinante crew make a startling discovery on an asteroid. Avasarala and Bobby contend with the devastation of Earth. Drummer and her family must make a heartbreaking decision. On Ceres, Marco and Philip's struggles turn inward.
A lot
into
of
a
description.
vagina.
Well, one of them does. Marco's actually too busy to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not too busy for a man bun.
oh my god, that's the biggest change in the show, is the man bun. Now we know exactly what type of villain he is. Now we know. Him and Amos better clash because they both got the hipster barista look to them in this.
Well,
Here's a question.
Amos does directly state, like, he's out here to kill Marco before Marco kills them. So
Here's a question for you, and there is only one correct answer, and please try and remove your bias. Who would make a better coffee? Marco or Amos? Who's the better barista out of the 2 of them?
we know that it's Holden, though.
No, but
We know that it's Holden. Holden is the coffee guy. Holden is the coffee guy.
but he doesn't look.
No! Holden is the actual barista!
He likes coffee, doesn't mean he's good at making coffee. But here's the thing. It's Marco, because in this episode, he loves coffee too, because he's like Holden. He's like Holden.
Oh,
He's the man that Holden...
Then why does that work for Marco? He likes coffee. That doesn't mean that he's good at making
Because
it.
he looks like a barista. That's the thing. I'm asking you, out of the two people in this series who look like baristas, who's the one making the better coffee? I'm not going out of my way to be like...
Just because
That's the
Holden
whole-
doesn't have a man bun doesn't mean that he's not.
That's his fault. He doesn't have a hipster beard like Amos, and he doesn't have man bun like Marco, so he's not looking like a barista. He looks like an Uber driver. And I say that with all respect to Stephen Strait, but if I got into a car and he was driving, I would be shocked. I would be shocked. And in this season, Holden, again, no offense to Stephen Strait, Holden looks like fucking shit. He's lost some weight.
Ragged.
He's lost some weight. He's definitely haggard, but you're deflecting. You don't want to say not Amos because you love Amos so much.
No, by the rules of the man bun, it's Marco.
It's Marco. Did you also see his jumpsuit outfit in this episode with like the phoenix on his chest? He looks like he's really ready to make you a good mocha. Like he's just so ready to brew you something.
No. You know, he looks like he's ready to go the effort and make you a magic.
There you go.
That's what it looks like.
I'm not a coffee person, so I take your words.
Yeah.
Neither of us are coffee heads.
No.
So we'll never know.
What a magic is.
I'll take your word that it's very good. I don't know.
No, it's just this really pretentious coffee.
Oh, Marco's
basically.
definitely making you that then. And then lecturing you about you drinking it.
It's just coffee. Sorry.
I could use something to keep me awake.
Yum Yum has a long and laboured history all the way back to season 2 of Discovery. The phrase existed before then.
I have no evidence of that, but go ahead.
It was just a defining moment in your life, and your memory is forever skewed.
The power of math people.
Science.
Fuck yeah. Hamlet. Hell yeah.
An individual is propositioned with a murder opportunity. But it's a justified murder within the context of the show because he's an antagonist that they're going to go kill. So Oscar award-winning actress Michelle Yeoh offers this invitation to this individual that barely counts as a character, Commander Nandi, and her response to this offer from this prestigious actress.
Well, now prestigious.
Prestigious actress.
I mean, she already was. She's a kung fu fighter. Yeah.
You know, within the context of the show, she's just a space Hitler type. But Commander Nandi responds in the affirmative with a unique choice of phrase.
Very unique.
One that you would not expect, but delights you. It delights you in the moment as much as it confuses you.
Arouses you even.
Well, it's not the phrase itself that just does that. It's the acting choices as she says the phrase, yum yum, which are...
She licks her lips sexily, throws her hair back, and looks with a side eye and says yum yum and oh.
And if you want to fact check that, you need
Go
to...
watch Star Trek Discovery. It's up to you. We've covered it, but we're here to talk about the Expanse and why does yum yum matter to the Expanse? How do we translate all of that absurdity into this series?
Well, Yum Yum was sexy. The Expanse started out sexy.
Looks like it's ending sexy too.
Well, we'll get into it. So we ask of the Expanse, What was the yum yum moment? What made us feel horny or sexy or aroused or many other synonym?
Wow, Rachel, you're really wanting to let everyone know that you can say other in a variety of voices. It has to be Philip fucking. That's how
Philip fucking!
That's how we introduce him in the season. Hey, you remember that nuanced child character from the last season? Well, he's a big boy now. He fucks. This season is the last, and let me just say this. This season is the last, and you can tell the gloves are off because there's more swearing, there's more sexual stuff, the violence is a lot more ramped up, or at least it feels much more at the forefront than it had been before. And there's just this open sense of nihilism and despair and despondency in the air.
It matches the point that
everyone's at.
The universe is at.
And all of our characters. But it's just such an interesting way to enter into this final stretch of the show. And yes, Philip fucking has to be the choice. There's nothing else really here outside of, like, that encompasses it all. Now, did you have any other selections, and or do you have an automatic Amos pick? Because you love Amos and you love choosing a moment with him that made you lick your lips, throw your hair back and say yum yum.
I did enjoy him kind of being a little bit flirty with Peaches, as he usually is. But the bit that got me most excited about Amos is when he confronts Naomi and is just like, get over yourself.
Fuck you, get over yourself. I rather enjoyed when he was asking if they can earn money for shooting the ships down, and he just had this cocky energy to him, like he's just being a bit of a funny guy in it, but that is what Strange Dogs has going on when it comes to the yum yum factor. But what was our impressions of this episode? How do you feel about the premiere of the final season?
I like the way that it's dropped us in. We have got a time jump, which was something else that I predicted. We've jumped 6 months into the future.
They always do that, it feels, in this show. It's like 187 days or whatever it is. They always love that kind of number. Just say 6 months, you fucks.
They do this time.
No, they say like 180 something days, I swear, when we cut to Holden on the...
Oh, yeah, like it gives how many days they've been out.
Yeah,
that's true.
This premiere, insane with the amount of random text on the screen you have to read.
Yeah, they go hard on that.
The show's actually been pretty good with that stuff. Like, I never feel like you're flooded with little text saying where we are, when we are, who we're with. But this episode, a lot of my notes were like, oh, there's another piece of text.
Oh, no. This part. It is a very hectic episode, but I never lost the thread of what's happening.
And you enjoyed it overall?
Yeah.
It's a very strong opening. I rather enjoyed it as well. I thought it was compact. There's many things to grapple with. We're setting the new status quo of the system and of our characters, but it didn't feel labored, and there was so much time to just wallow in where our characters are at mentally rather than where they are at in terms of pushing a plot beat forward. So when we cut over to Christian, or when we cut over to Philip, or when we cut over to Holden, I'm much more intrigued about how they're feeling rather than what they are having to do.
It definitely sets up the interiority of all of our characters in their separate locations and just how low everybody is.
we have had issues over the seasons with these writers in terms of their abilities to make that feel natural. And they not only made it feel natural, but it was exciting because we're getting a recap of information, but it's also being contextualized in a new way. We get the news footage montage in which we get the different factions, news stations. Like here's Earth,
you don't
here's
care
Mars,
about any of that, Ryan.
and here's the OPA.
You
and
don't care about that.
But here's why I'm saying all of this. Because it's hit you with a nostalgia that you may not have expected, but we have always been rooting for, which is the Gaunt Belter is back. And not only is he back, he's right this time. Where he is at is vindication, as said earlier, because he kind of introduced the show, or at least the series plotline, and he was saying a lot of things that you could understand, but he was framed as this radical who is far out of line, and the establishment is rolling their eyes at him. But now here he is as the face of where we are at currently, and he's on the right side at the moment, and he's so much relishing it. I know that people, you may want to just hear Rachel and I be all goofy and be like, hey, it's a Gaunt Belter, but like on a serious level though, pulling this character back in the way that they did was not only great on a reminder of where we were at, but on a dramatic writing level, it really sets the stakes of where we will be going from here on out.
And it's just fun to see him again. Like, it's just fun.
Did you actually think we would really ever see him return?
Oh, no. No, I didn't trust that. Because there were so many things that just didn't come back. And we just get very haphazardly thrown in there that Dawes is dead, so no more Jared Harris for us in this show, and I'm disappointed.
They reward us with a Season 1 character return, but they also rob us by removing a Season 1 character. Is the trade-off worth it? Maybe.
Dawes always said
Dawes is dead because I got tired of listening to what he had to say.
It's a great thing to hook us in, but what was the thing that actually launched this one off?
An alien planet with actual alien life. We're on Laconia with a child, and when we first saw her, I was very scared because I thought we were going down the Game of Thrones path, and it was going to be a Chrissy flashback that opened up the season.
I don't know why you thought that. She's clearly on an alien planet.
Yeah, but like, I don't know what ticked over in my brain, but irrational fear came in and was like, oh, no. Even though, like, very quickly, I was like, oh no, that's not what happened.
So other than your misgivings about something that didn't happen, what did happen, and how did you react to it? What do you get out of this? Because we do not return physically to Laconia in the rest of the episode. It gets little mentions, but what did you feel about this? What happened, and what did you get out of it?
It's establishing that they've set up life and that they've investigated things, and it appears safe enough that, you know, children can wander around unattended.
Or reckless enough that children can wander around unattended. Remember, this is Sparta mindset, and them and children.
True. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah. I did, because it's so bizarre. It's so bizarre to open up this season with this little girl who we don't know anything about. We don't even know their name. Wandering around by herself on an alien world. They've only been there, 6 months? And was that even how long time has passed of them on Laconia? I think it may have been. But she's just fucking around with these alien creatures. And then a new alien creature comes over that she calls a dog, and it does not look like a dog at all. It looks...
It's on all fours and it has a face.
We only see its face mainly. We don't see the rest of its body as much. I was waiting for it to crawl out of the foliage and we would see that it's much bigger and more frightening than she was thinking it was. But she sees this creature and she's a young, naive child. And she thinks it's cute, and she thinks it's going to be a friend, and she thinks there's going to be some beautiful moment here. And instead, what happens? One of her little bird creatures that she cares so much about is like injured or ill or whatever the case may be, and she has to tend to that.
Out.
And she says she's going to help save it, and she runs back to wherever the colony is, I imagine. And that's the big thrust of it. And then the little alien dog looks up to the sky and sees the scary platform up there. And we get a big glory shot of the landscape of Laconia. Cut to the rest of the show. What was that? What do you get out of this? What does this set up for you? What does this make you feel overall? And does this have any statement to what the rest of the episode is about? Or is this just a tease?
Like, I didn't think about it in terms of like thematic meaning as much. I was just thinking more on the literal level of this is establishing that there's alien life on this planet, something that there wasn't on Ellis, and that they have established an understanding of the planet, and that the thing orbiting the planet has continued to grow, I think.
Is developing still. I am so keen to understand why they've put this in here. Because I don't believe fully that we're going to dig into this during the season. We just don't have time. We just don't have time for it, but they've put it in at the start. And that's a promise in a weird way. Like, you are saying this is the season. You're tuning in to season 6. Here's what we're showing you that it's going to be about. Will it actually be? I doubt it, just because of the scale of it, just because of the implications of it. This alien life, this alien world run by people who are going about things in a truly reckless and militaristic manner. Do you think we are going to follow up on this stuff during this last season?
I do think that we are going to get something, but I don't think we're going to get a lot.
It beautifully mirrors the life happening on Earth. We have this rich, fertile, untouched or barely touched planet of Laconia. Humanity has just started on there, and what is the sign of our existence? War, militarism, something made for an agenda. That's what that thing in the sky is. And we then go over to Earth, and we now see, and now we feel, and now we understand the toll of that, the cost of that. What does that lead to in the end? In the end, it leads to our own home being a desolate wasteland where we had all of this beauty once, this abundance, this wonderland, this Garden of Eden, and now it is ash. Now it is this nuclear wasteland type thing where there probably will be no way to heal from the scars of conflict, of war, of anger, of hatred, of bigotry. Because that is what we are getting with Christian at the start of this episode. She's getting all of the information, the reports on how bad Earth is.
And how Marco is still throwing rocks, and that it is continuing to fuck up Earth.
The rocks don't even have to hit Earth anymore to hurt it. What did you feel about her speech in regards to the was it a farming grain installation? It was like where corn was grown and stuff that she opened like 11 or so years ago, and now it is desolate, where she talks about this would have fed so many people, and now that resource, that comfort is removed from them.
Yeah, I felt more attached to the idea that she's reminiscing about simpler times in her career as well. Like, dealing with the problem of like writing a speech and feeding the masses. She's got a almost nostalgia for that now.
What else is Christian having to contend with in the episode? What else is she having to go through? Because she's now the leader. She's the Secretary General again, and she's in charge. And so that means she has to manage everything.
Yeah, and she's trying to figure out how to get out from underneath Marco's thumb, how to help Earth, and also go after Marco, and how to do that in a smart way.
She still wants to unify Earth, Mars, and the Belt against Marco. There's this effort to build more warships. Mars is back.
Oh, that's right.
Building
they're
stuff.
giving the details of like, and this will be ready by this point, and this and this and this and this.
But she's making a choice that's what Marco is making at the same time in this episode, which is a tricky one in her case in comparison, which is they don't have the resources to rebuild and help everyone and feed the people, but they are going to have to use them to build more warships, to build more of the industry that fights back against the enemy, but in so doing, you're not helping the people. And is that the correct choice? How does that make you feel? How do you react to that? Because we have Marco doing the exact same thing in this episode, but it's in a different context and framed very differently.
Like, what has to give? And like Marco's right hand woman is just like, oh no, just fuck him, bigger picture only. Whereas Avasarala is facing the human side of it.
But she still is leaning into the effort of
because it's like, well,
the fight.
We can't let him win.
We have knocked down nearly every rock Marco and Neros has thrown at us for the last 6 months. As 200 individual strikes.
And he has kept what's left of our fleet pinned down doing it. While he makes every station and rock hopper in the belt pledge allegiance to his so-called fucking free navy.
We like Christian, and that opening with her is super effective in getting into her mindset of why she is going about things the way she is, why she's being so secretive, why she's holding things back, but also how she is going about it in a different way than the previous establishment. But that doesn't mean everyone agrees with her. Bobby doesn't agree with her. Monica doesn't agree with her.
No, and Monica's definitely like challenging Avasarala the most directly out of the reporters that come questioning. But all of her statements are fair, and all of her questions are fair. They're aggressive, but that's also what we expect from Monica. And since we know her in particular, we know the place in which those questions are coming from, and that she genuinely does believe in the power of journalism and the way that it can help keep politicians accountable.
Monica challenges the establishment. That's her job. And Christian is the establishment. We like Christian, but she's the one making the choices. And are those the right choices? And Monica is asking, why can't you tell anyone? We're in the dark. The people don't know what's going on. And we can all relate to that sensation. We can all relate to that sensation of we don't understand what the higher-ups that we believe are looking after our best interests are doing. And Monica asks an interesting question. She asks something that Christian seems shocked that anyone would ask her, which is, have you opened up a dialogue? Have you started to ask for negotiations? Are you willing to extend the olive branch and actually talk to these people?
We definitely get the impression that it would not work because that doesn't align with Marco's plans or ideals. He wants to defeat Earth and destroy it. I don't think he would be satisfied with just subjugating the planet. But it's like, well, yeah, you're losing the battle. Opening a dialogue, or at least trying to, would make sense. It is very, we don't negotiate with terrorists coded kind of response that she gives, though.
Yeah, and the thing too is, maybe Monica is asking something that cannot be achieved, but she doesn't know that. Or if she does, she's indicating that the people don't know that fully. How does Christian explain that to an entire planet of those suffering? That we can't bend down to the people who are attacking to us.
Asking and being answered openly and honestly. But I also get why Christian doesn't want to do that.
Is a part of this because, and I don't believe this, but it has to be asked because Christian is a character that has had the history. And we know she's changed, but is there a part of this entire thing that is pride? That is, in a way, not wanting Earth to become a secondary power? Because that would be the change. Like, that would be the trade-in of opening up and compromising and talking to the others, is, in a way, admitting that Earth is no longer in charge.
Yeah. And I do think that it would take more than this to get her to that point, because I do think that she would believe that that would be giving up and falling to her knees and letting Marco win.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they do that, then they don't have hope left.
So much has changed for her, though. She's lost her husband. She's seeing the very thing she fought for and lost credibility for start to slowly die, and that's the Earth itself. She lost her son due to attacks like this in the past, these terrorist-like attacks, and what does she get in return? She gets people questioning her and thinking that she's doing this as a despot power move when that's actually what Marco's doing. She is actually worried about the people. Marco isn't. Marco doesn't give a fuck about the people or government governing. Like, yeah, it's easy to destroy shit and to go after people for vengeance sake, but you actually have to lead. What does that actually look like? And in Christian's case, we see what it looks like, and it's tough. I really loved the kind of final sequences where she is floating and she's talking about...
That's what I think of when I think of her in this episode. And her being like, I never thought that I would like this. And then she needs Bobby's help to get back down.
She feels relieved to not have the Earth weigh her down anymore. A very meaningful line packed with a lot of stuff in it. And it's the character having evolved so much from the beginning of the series, in which she hated going to space. She didn't know how to use the mag boots. She didn't really understand the stuff. She was so earthbound.
for me, very much showing how it's taking a toll on her. That she needs to literally feel weightless to feel unburdened from the difficult choices that she's having to make and the position that she has found herself in, that Earth has found itself in.
Christian is feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she sees that Bobby is unhappy. And Bobby is off. Christian's like, hello, Bobby. Remember how I asked you to be in a plotline with me 2 seasons ago and you said no? And then in season 5, we still weren't together in a plot, like you were working for me at a distance? Well, now we're physically in the same room together and we're working together in plots. Could you not? Could you just go away?
This isn't working out. Sorry.
Holden's figured out this thing, and I need you to help be a part of my own plan to deal with stuff. And I need you to do some dirty shit for me. And Bobby, she seems skeptical, but happy. And I just wanted to bring this up because I know you and I have a problem with Bobby. But how disappointing is it that they're already saying, Bobby, don't spend time with one of the main characters?
Oh, I find it funny.
She's going to unite with the Rocinante.
Yeah.
Yes?
That's my assumption.
Why not just start her there? Well, how about we actually connect with the Rocinante crew? It's been a while out there for them. They're on missions, secret reconnaissance, trying to undermine Marco's ability to strike at Earth. The Rocinante has joined the fight, and what does that look like for them?
It looks like them going around shooting down free Navy ships and being exhausted by it.
They're not mercenaries, though, Rachel.
No, because they're not getting paid for it, and Amos wants to get paid. And I love that he's just like, hey, do you think we can convince Chrissy to pay us?
What have they been sent out to do exactly?
Oh, I don't know. I think it might just be as simple as, like, they're just trying to gather information and destroy free Navy ships and try and wound Marco in some way.
Is it that they are trying to achieve what they do in the end, which is the weakness to his attack force that is throwing their rocks at Earth? Because that is what they do stumble across in this episode, but it did feel like that was just a surprise goal that happened. They are not focused too much on the details of what their reconnaissance missions are, other than to strike back at Marco. And that's not a weakness of the episode.
They instead linger on the toll that it is taking on each of the characters. You really feel the weight of these 6 months bearing down on them.
It's not our problem anymore.
Well, in the big picture, it could be. The only reason the rings are here is because of us.
I am out here to kill Marco before he kills us. The only reason that I'm still out here instead of drinking myself blind on Luna is because I don't want to abandon you. So don't abandon us.
You were the one more than I that had some grievances with Alex's passing and more so the aftermath of it. So talk to us a bit about how you feel, and were you happy and or surprised that this episode was actually tackling it? Because they could have just not. I mean, time jump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I appreciate that it's still very much there, because it makes sense that they haven't been able to deal with it properly. But I think for me, the moment that really stood out is Naomi sort of sadly reflecting on the fact that it's the first time that she's ever had to fly the Rossi. And that wasn't something immediately that she thought of. Like, it dawned on her during doing it, or at least she was like, okay, now I'm going to admit that I'm feeling this.
Holden tries to comfort her about that too. Whereas like I've had that too, you know, like I'm feeling like he tries to comfort her by being like, you're not alone in this grief.
And the way that grief pops up naturally and organic of like, oh, like this thing reminds me of this person, or like this, I haven't done this since this point. That felt really true and honest and really helped ground their grief for me, because it's one thing to not have time to really process, but it's another thing to ignore all of your emotions and repress. And we know from Amos's example that doesn't work. So it's nice that they're still acknowledging the impact of Alex's death, even if they're not, going to therapy about it.
The friction between the crew is strengthened because they lost Alex. There's a version of this series in which we may have gotten this exact same story with Alex here, and they are just fraught because so much time has passed where they're not achieving the mission statement, and Naomi is feeling grief-stricken about Philip and hunting down her own people, and Amos is feeling a little bit trigger-happy but not being able to fulfill it, and Holden is being Holden.
But he's also like, I just want to be somewhere getting drunk.
Exactly, but all of that is still here, but it's now got this layer of extra tragedy because they are not really dealing with their loss, with their trauma of Alex's passing, and the episode keeps bringing it in these very quiet but very hard-hitting ways, such as when Amos is moving a bunch of shit and he sees the little plaque on the wall and he sees Alex's name and he just has a look. He doesn't say anything, he just gives it a look and a little head tilt of just like...
I think it was Holden at the end of last season had that same look at that same plaque.
I'm happy that they did this. I'm very happy that they have leaned into it, because it's giving the season, or them in particular, extra heartbreak when you watch it. Like, this is a very heavy season premiere.
Oh, yeah.
Very heavy. Like, there's no...
It's showing them in the pits of things.
There's barely any humor in this episode, and when it is there, it's so...
It's dark.
It's so... Yeah, and minute in comparison to, like, last season's premiere, where there was a lot more, like, levity and fun. There's no cowboy bar in this season premiere. We don't have time.
I just want to say that I'm glad that they are still dealing with the loss of Alex, because I was kind of afraid that after what you told me about, like, they got rid of the actor more than they got rid of the character, that they weren't going to deal with his loss, and that was what was happening in the finale. So I'm really appreciating that they bothered to do it.
Bull is not here.
No.
I was shocked. I thought with how they set it up, he was going to be the replacement. He literally had Alex's mug in his hand, sitting in his chair. So I thought Bull was going to be a part of this crew in this season. It doesn't seem so. They don't even mention him.
No.
They don't even say anything about him. Where is he? Do we get an acknowledgement in future episodes? Perhaps we do. Perhaps he's running Tycho, like he took over Fred's job, but we don't know. And it's just so bizarre because they really set it up as like our new family. Here's Bull, here's Clarissa. How are they going to bring conflict on the ship?
Marco's got all of the stations now, so...
Does he have Tycho?
I thought he had Tycho too. But they don't specifically refer to it. I just assumed. So that, like, I didn't think that Bull would be there.
But where is he? And why did they set him up in this way only to not follow up on him?
I am wondering if they set him up and then they got backlash for it and they decided not to move forward with him.
Or the actor. may
the
not have been
actor-
available.
Yeah.
This season seems like a mess production-wise because the 6 episodes really stands out as like a method of that. And was this during COVID times? I have to wonder
Yeah,
if they
I
were
think-
doing this during that time because they have the
think this
mini-sodes, which I
season
imagine are like 1 or 2 people on
came
set.
out in 2021.
So yeah,
I
right?
think.
So I don't know when the filming of this is and if it had been affected by that stuff. We know productions like Star Trek Discovery and a few others around the same time where you could tell, in defense of this episode, if it is shot during pandemic times, I couldn't tell any issues of it. Just Bull not being here was a bit of a surprise. I must admit, I am a little disappointed he wasn't here because it means that on the rewatch of season 5, his character means even less to me.
Yeah.
Because at least if he was in season 6, I can be like, well,
He's serving this purpose.
he flies the ship now. At least that would be the purpose rather than just in season 5, he was there too.
He was there. He was Fred's friend.
They find this asteroid, this rock. They destroy a ship, but then they realize this rock has something on it. It has a drive plume on it. This is something that will be launched at Earth. And instead of just shooting it, instead of just destroying it, they investigate it. And Holden finds himself in a season 1 plot line.
Holden nearly gets himself killed, and it really pisses off Naomi. And I love the way that they deal with that. I really do. That you like this is just how you fucking do things, and I am not okay with it right now.
And she's not saying it in a. I love how the actress Dominic Tipper delivers a lot of this. It's not in that relationship argument or like vitriol way that we've had in the past, but it's in a real I'm tired and defeated way.
Like I can't
just get back on the
this
ship
anymore.
Just get back on the ship. Stop being James Holden protagonist. Just get back on the ship. Like in a way, it's more devastating to.
It's I'm
say
not
it like
angry.
that.
I'm disappointed.
I'm over it. It's not even disappointed. It's I'm over it. This is something that always happens. Get back on the ship. It was a very season 1 style plot of.
But it was relatively
character-
brief.
I laughed at the season 1-ness of it all. Of like, let's just
hit
bash it until
yeah.
it fixes itself, and it worked. And I'm like, huzzah!
Yeah, if I hit it, it'll break.
Is Holden being reckless here? Like, how do you read his character in this episode? Because he is getting a lot of pushback, and I don't think, unlike season 5, it's undeserved. But at the same time, how do you read his character?
I think he is desperate for a win. I think if he ran the first time Naomi said to run, he could have made it to safety. But he'd already decided.
Is he doing okay as a person? Because he seems the least rattled out of the crew, or him and Peaches, but out of our main crew, he seems the least beaten down with everything that's going on. He still has that James Holden,
That we've
we can do the
seen
mission.
So far, yeah.
But do you believe it? Do you believe it? Do you think that he actually is doing okay or not?
I think he's doing better than the others, but I don't think any of them are doing okay, except for maybe Peaches, because...
She's got something to prove.
Yeah, but that wasn't even what I was thinking. I was just thinking she's just happy to not be in prison.
I don't think... So, Holden stood out to me the most as not being fine because he was acting so calmly to crazy shit going on in a way that I found upsetting. So when Naomi's screaming at him to run away and he bashes the thing, funny, but then the exchange back and forth.
Traumatized.
The exchange back and forth, Stephen Straight's acting is so good. The line delivery is just so monotone, dry, flat of like, there was no way to run, so I had to do this. And it feels like he's accepted his fate of, I have to be the guy that pushes us to do this. I have to be the one that does this. Amos goes at him in this exact same manner of like, I'm here to kill Marco. The only reason I'm here instead of back home being rich and getting drunk off my ass is because I'm following you. And Holden has this look on his face of like, that is my role.
Yeah.
Everyone has to follow me. This is what I'm allotted in life.
He's the captain.
He seems trapped in having to be the one to hold them all together, but he is not holding himself together. Emotionally, he feels way more cut off. I said this last season, and I thought, well, maybe because they didn't have time, but they're following up in this season, and I want to get your thoughts on it. He still is the one that doesn't react that emotionally outwardly about Alex's death. He's the one that seems still the most detached outwardly in terms of emotions about it. Everyone else, even Amos is cracking about it. But Holden, he doesn't really seem as broken up.
No, and I take that as he is still putting on the mask of being the captain. Like, he can't fall apart because he needs to try and hold everybody together, and that's hard enough.
I think sometimes I convince myself the worst can't happen. It's a way for me to get through things. I'll be more careful for all of us, I promise.
Naomi, on the other hand, she's on the extreme opposite. She is so much feeling the guilt of Alex's death. I think she still feels responsible.
Oh, yes.
And she's bringing that into all of her other personal facets of her life. I think that and the loss of Philip are like chewing away at her. So when she's arguing against Holden, that's a part of it. And when she's facing off against Amos, that's a part of it. And when she's projecting all of this anger and venom towards Clarissa, that's a part of it. But the thing that I really love about this series is that's all true, but it doesn't negate the fact that you can see why she's right about these things, because she's right. Holden is acting like a dickhead.
Yeah.
She's right. Amos is being a bit unfair. She's right to be upset about Clarissa Mao being here, not only because Clarissa tried to kill James Holden and murdered so many people to do so, but like,
annoyed that they didn't bring up that Peaches tried to kill Naomi specifically.
just to fuck with Holden. Like, Clarissa Mao was like, the way Clarissa was introduced to Naomi was nearly choking her to death. So I get why Naomi is pissed off. And what's beautiful is all of those things are valid, but they keep having this air of like, well, Naomi would know better. If Naomi wasn't so broken up about her son and about Alex, she would have
let it go by now.
She would have understood and been able to reconcile. But she can't because she has all of those other factors. So I actually felt a lot of the emotion she was feeling of just despair. I know that you'll probably like side with Amos. Here's some great points, but like, fucking fair on Naomi's part. It's so it's mind-bogglingly. It would piss me off.
They're not dealing with their problems. They're dealing with the galaxy's problems. Amos had that conversation with Holden that we found funny at the end of last season, where he's just like, hey, you forgave me for wanting to kill you, so you're going to forgive her, right? He didn't have that conversation with Naomi.
Not at all. And he didn't have it because he decided, well, I can make this choice because, well, Naomi, you randomly decided stuff that affected everyone, so fuck you.
And this is just Clarissa being on the ship, not giving the proto-molecule to the OPA.
Which affects the whole entire system at large and all of humanity.
And that
so
decision
fuck you,
is,
Naomi. You can't decide over that, so
that
can't decide.
decision is why Marco has all of these Martian ships that is fucking over everybody.
Yeah, but at some point, where do you draw the line on that? Like, because everyone's being cruel and vindictive because it's easier to do that. rather than admit fault, rather than be open and honest, rather
it's
than
easier to blame
than to see from other people's point of view. And what I think is just a sticking point here about Clarissa, and it really leapt out at me, is who is she? Because in the eyes of the show, we had a whole season of getting to know who she is and how she's changed. But in Naomi's point of view, and within this episode, all you see is a random woman being friends with only Amos, who's trying to emulate Amos and impress Amos and just be oh so nice, oh so sweet, and there's no acknowledgement on Clarissa's part of what she was and what she did and how she affected this crew of people.
because she's moved on.
And or she's avoiding it. Because Clarissa should have at this point talked to Holden and Naomi.
And even
about
if we
what
don't
happened.
see that, we should get that impression.
I don't think she has. I think she's been hiding behind Amos. I think she's, in a way, used him as a shield because he's defending her. He's also motivating her, and he's training her, and he's molding her, and he's mother henning her. He is so on her side, and I think she's become comfortable in that.
I'm excited for what they do with it because I am really invested in all of these characters and the fact that there's this challenge to them staying together, and it feels like these cracks go deep and they might not be able to come back together.
You're obviously a huge fan of Amos as a character, and I just wanted to say that I really loved how they went about him in this episode because he's still the lovable guy we know. His banter with Peaches is really, really just cute. It's very cute, but he has an antagonism to him in this season. He's very much pushing back against Holden and Naomi because he now, thanks to being away from them, has a sense of purpose, sense of definition to himself, which is such a growth from in season 2 where he tried to keep making choices for himself and fucking up. And then he decided that he's just not good at it. Now he no longer has that. He realizes that I can make choices for myself. I can have views for myself, but I'm still going to help my friends. But there's a resentment that he has towards them for not really seeing that in him.
Yeah, it's just like, you are still treating me how I used to be, not how I am now. And he's also sort of projecting that on Peaches with the way that Naomi is treating her the way that she used to be. Like he says, you've been flying together for months. Has she done anything to you?
No.
No. So why are you still hung up on this?
But that's a problem though, isn't it? Because Amos, being as emotionally stunted and doesn't understand social cues and norms, and has that very matter-of-fact, that's in the past, it's over now type attitude, is not how most people react to things. So,
no, it's like most people don't forgive somebody that tried to kill them.
And even then, Amos isn't recognizing, he doesn't recognize the fact that Clarissa hasn't tried either. Like, okay, so you have a problem with Clarissa for all these months. Why is that? Can't you get over it? She's done nothing but be good. Well, yeah, but Clarissa's been here for months too. Has she actually tried to make right by them?
And I didn't choose for her to be here. You did, Amos.
You did. But then he throws it back in her face like, well, you did this big thing. It's like, yeah, but where do you stop? Where does it end? Where does it end? And yes, Amos had this beautiful
How much
growth.
does just blaming each other help? Not at all.
And there's a give and take because yes, Amos has grown up. He's his own person. He has beliefs of his own. He has his own autonomy. he's a defined person. He has wants, needs, and desires outside of just imprinting on other people. But that's great and all. But yeah, he also has to learn to understand that other people have those too. But who do you side with? Who do you agree with? And the answer is kind of everyone and no one.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they all have valid points, but you don't agree with where they end up.
And you made some pretty big decisions for all of us without talking to me.
Oh, so does that mean you can do whatever you like now?
I'm not saying that. But maybe you could cut Peaches a fucking break like we all did for you.
You should find somewhere else to be.
And this episode is very much following on the themes that were heavily reinforced at the end of the 5th season, which is family. And the struggles of family and how family changes and how families come and go.
And we importantly touch base with another one of our families of the show, with Drummer. And even though, I don't really remember the character that is being sort of let go.
Micho?
Yeah, I feel for Drummer in that moment of, wanting to keep the family together, but also needing to know that everybody who's on the ship is capable of doing their job under the extreme amount of pressure
that they're in.
And that's a reality of it, because she's the captain as well as the head of the family, and that sometimes the needs of those two things don't align, and her resistance against letting this person go while also wanting them to know that
they're loved.
Yeah.
The big conflict at the center of this is they are under the biggest pressure out of anyone because the whole universe is against them in a way where Marco has pretty much unified the belts, and Marco's faction hates Drummer because of what she did at the end of the last season. Drummer is not seemingly willing to compromise and bend and work with the UN or Mars, so she's not welcomed by them either because she is a belt, she's a random belt, and those people are not welcome right now in Earth space.
I really thought that she would join up with the Rossi, though.
Well, she might still.
I thought that that's where we would meet her.
I assume that she would be in a similar place to where we are now with her because she's a little bit too strong-willed at times, and she has to be willing to compromise, and that's what this story's about. This story is they lost a ship of theirs. Well, they had to sacrifice a ship as a plan B because they were going to shoot this one that's targeting them, but Micho fucks it up. She fucks it up yet again.
The wrong button.
She fucks it up yet again, and then there's the discussion of having to let her go.
Yeah. Leave her at a safe port, which isn't what anybody wants to do.
But they might have to.
Necessary.
Is it?
Well, yeah, she's endangering the crew by failing to do her job. And there's no room for people who aren't there to do work.
They barely have rations. They barely have weaponry. They have 3 torpedoes now. Oh, great. What a great number it is. It's justifiable on a strictly pragmatic level. But on a human level, how do you relate to it?
For me, it's no, they're at war.
Mm-hmm.
So their safety is the primary concern.
But as we see, but that's the thing though. But as we see with Tales of War, within this episode, how much
everybody deserves to be safe, and she is endangering them.
Mm-hmm.
By being there and trying to do her job and failing.
Oh, I completely agree with the overall statement from
so it's
the
just
guy.
For me, it's just well, not it's valid.
It is.
It is what makes sense. Does it feel bad? Yes. Are other things more important? Yes.
But it's that push and pull, and this is on a strictly intimate level of what do you do to what are you willing to sacrifice for the efforts of conflict and war? Christian is willing to sacrifice so much of the people's safety and knowledge of where they're at to save them. Marco doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck. He's going to look after himself. And now we have Drummer having to sacrifice a personal connection for conflict and war. Like, why does Drummer have to keep up the fight the way she is? Why can't she go to ground and hide? Why can't she wait until, as she says, it's over? Why? Why can't she do that? Like, yeah, she's got a target on her back, maybe running still. What? But she's not choosing to run. She's choosing to fight.
Is there anywhere to hide, though?
Probably. But at the same time, is she trying to do the hiding part, or is she trying to do the running and fighting part? That's what I got out of this. And Micho says it, like, when will it be over? Like, when is over? Because it's like, we'll come back for you when it's over. When's that going to be? If that ever exists. And if so, what will it look like after that? But to be a leader, do you have to give up who you are? Because that's been a part of Drummer's resistance to leadership, is she wants to remain herself and she wants to remain what she thinks Belters are about, but time and time and time again, she's told, you must put that away. You must give up a piece of yourself. You must do that. And so what does that mean, and how does that separate her from what Fred Johnson became, or from what Anderson Dawes was, or from any of them?
You won that bet, though, about Dawes.
Oh, I won that bet. I won that fucking bet about Dawes.
I just needed to give you props for that again.
It was so obvious. Last piece about the Drummer bit that I just wanted to say is, casting-wise, they do a really great job with a lot of these minor characters, and not only is it just the actors' abilities to do the work, but there's just something very important about, at least for myself, visual stuff. And I mean this in terms of, like, the actress who plays Micho, she has her hair tied back and she has the tattoo on her face, but she has such a round, soft, friendly face that
baby face.
Yeah, she has such a baby face that I feel so much about her without having to be given so much about the character.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, she doesn't look like she's ready to take care of herself.
And when you're telling her this heartbreaking news, she already knows that it's coming. It's like when a child is being told off for something that they know they've already done is wrong, and they wish that they could fix it, but they can't. And juxtapose that with Marco's right-hand woman, a new character. That actress, I've seen her in a bunch of things before. She looks very different in this than she did in some of those other things. But she has such a hardness. She has such like angular but also jagged look to her face. Like, she's very she's kind of like Marco in a way, that actor too, where we said like he looks like a statue, like an Adonis. Yeah. She has that thing too, and it's like, even before she talks, you know what her character is about by her
of those
face.
Strong features,
just these visuals. It's something that does matter to a lot of things. Like, many actors, especially character actors, get a lot of work because of how they look. The acting's important too, but the look factor is key to this, where I don't even need the dialogue to make me feel sad for Drummer's family falling apart. And that's just something to praise. So, you have already said that I won the bet about Anderson Dawes, so how about we actually talk about the death of Anderson Dawes and how Marco has risen up to be the true despot?
Single line.
Wow. I can't believe it.
Just Marco being like, he's dead because I got sick of him.
I got sick of him trying to talk to me about how to do things, so I killed him.
Yep. And it makes perfect sense.
We knew this was going to be the case just because he hadn't shown up in a very long time, and Jared Harris has had an amazing career, and I don't begrudge him, but outside real world context matters, but on a purely guttural level, are you happy? Are you happy with how Anderson Dawes played into the series and how we ended here?
No, I'm disappointed. I wanted more of him. I am disappointed as well because it kind of feels like he was our last tenable link to the OPA. And it just feels like that whole thing has been snuffed out by Marco. And I'm disappointed that it's just kind of fallen away. And because it was built up so much. And it kind of makes sense that these, the factions have fallen apart and have just been sort of reconstituted into the Free Navy. But the OPA was such a force that everybody was afraid of and that so many people believed in. It feels sad in a way that it's just like, oh, it's done now.
I'm obviously ecstatic at the fact that I was correct, but I'm disappointed that I was correct because Anderson Dawes was such a vibrant character. He was slippery, but you had a hard time understanding what his real agenda is because he kept talking so much. And I would have really appreciated seeing a scene of him talking to Marco because we never got scenes of Marco talking to Fred Johnson or Anderson Dawes. I really would have loved one or the other, preferably Anderson Dawes, because I don't know, feasibility-wise, it was probably not on the table, but make a scene of Anderson Dawes talking to Marco, trying to be the statesman he didn't want to be because he has to be. Because Anderson Dawes was the radical one between him and Fred, but he also understood the bigger picture. Anderson Dawes had an end goal in mind where he talked about, like, we deserve a planet, like, we deserve to have equality too, while Marco doesn't give a fuck about any, like, end goal point. He just wants to be in charge. Anderson Dawes felt like more than just someone who wants to be in charge and to oppress. He had twisted ideals, and I really would have loved to have seen him sit down and try and de-escalate or foolishly try and make Marco understand the error of his ways, and then Marco just shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
And if he shot him in the head, it would have actually, in this episode, it would have actually been beautiful to connect it to what Philip does in the episode, to show that there is a lot of his father in him, because the series has very much made it feel like Marco manipulates Philip to have his side of himself, but deep down, Philip is actually more like his mother, which narratively speaking works, but realistically speaking is kind of bullshit. Like, he should be way more like Marco than he ever has been. But I think that would have actually been really nicely done if you had Anderson Dawes die and then Philip kills his friend, and it's this kind of like, see, they're very much alike, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
One doesn't feel anything about killing, and the other one feels much about it, and yet does it anyway because they're emotional. And yeah, I'm disappointed that Anderson Dawes is dead, but it makes sense. And now Marco's in charge of Ceres Station, and he calls it like their homeland. Like, this is our place now. This is where.
Like, it's been a long time since I've been here, but I call it home because he's invited to do a speech, and it's just like, oh, he would have said this exact same thing on all of these stations.
Our presence on Ceres has rallied countless belters to the cause.
Well, then it served its purpose. We owe these people nothing.
Ceres is our capital. These are our people. Your job is to get them what they need.
If you have any specific logistical suggestions, we'd love to hear them.
He's going to starve the people. He's going to exploit them. He's going to do what we saw in the first season. Ration them and make them suffer.
What you would expect a warlord to do.
What you expected Earth used to do.
Mm-hmm.
How's he any better? He says he's doing this all because we're better than the Inners, but now he is doing what the Inners did to his own people. And the beauty, again, the greatness of this is he does not care. And what do you think about his right-hand woman? We mentioned her briefly, but what do you think about her? Because we had Sin in the last season as like the rational, level-headed, like one who reels him in. Now we have this new woman.
No, but he doesn't have anybody to question him anymore.
No, he is like a true despot. He has people to glorify him, to motivate him, to say that he's right. And it's not as if she's a suck-up. She's genuinely as unhinged as he is. She genuinely is as uncaring as he is.
Yeah.
He's found a soulmate in a weird way with this lady. My favorite scene in the episode.
This is what he wanted of Naomi.
You took it right from my mouth. That's exactly what he wanted from Naomi, this person. My favorite scene in the episode is actually involving her. My favorite scene in the episode is when they are discussing that and she brings him the coffee and they're having a nice little back and forth, and then Philip comes in and he's trying to argue against this, and he's just but a boy, of course. He doesn't have a solution to the problem. He just knows it's wrong. He knows it goes against what Marco says he stands for. I never thought that when we met Naomi's kid, he would be one of the most compelling characters in the series. But I find him one of the most compelling because I don't know how to feel about him. And I don't say that as a fault of the series, but as a pro, as a positive statement, because they make him a character full of contradictions and conflicts. He is someone that he feels this separation between him and what people think of him. He wants to be the kid who gets the girls.
The man.
But he wants to be the kid who chases after girls, drinks with his mate, and gets into mischief, but he also wants to be the man. He wants to be the leader, the one in charge. He wants to be revered. He wants to be respected, but then also he knows the actual cost of that on his soul, and it upsets him. We made the statement about the yum-yum at the beginning of him having sex, but what a way to introduce this character. What a way to bring us back into where he's at and like show us how much he is in a state of ruin, internally speaking, where he's having sex with this woman and it's this angry, aggressive sex, but he's clearly not enjoying it. He's just doing it as a release.
Mm-hmm. It is just... It's not even primal in the like that kind of way. There is such desperation to it. Like primal is like close to what I'm kind of feeling about it, but it isn't quite capturing what's going on there.
Is he verging on being a psychopath though? Because he's emotionally unable to express himself, so he vents it out and channels it into violence, into sexual stuff, where it's almost verging on sexual violence, because like there's this woman that rejects him in the episode throughout it, and he is determined to get her because he needs to, and because he can't get her, he then lashes out and kills his own friend. And that's not the only reason he kills his own friend, but it is a part of it. Like, what do you feel? Because Philip doesn't want to be a psychotic, murderous type who's responsible for the death of millions, but then also he has a lot of these disturbing traits because he, like with many characters in this episode, is unwilling and or unable to get in touch with themselves, to actually confront what's going on in their mind.
Yeah, and it does make you feel conflicted about him, because we've touched on this idea before of like, well, he's been trained by Marco from childhood to be this, so no wonder he's dysfunctional.
So he has his friend to try and ground him, to be what he's supposed to be, which is a young man. His friend is the ideal of what he should be. This young, dumb man who's chasing after girls, enjoying the riches and splashing out on luxury, and
I love
is
like
having
the
enjoying
tattooed
themselves.
Tour of victories that he's been a part of,
And the was it alligator skin or crocodile skin vest that he
crocodile.
has, and he's being mocked before being taken for a ride with that, but then we don't know if it's real or not at the end of the episode. Like, I like that little touch if we don't know. I did not, when I was watching the episode itself, I hated his friend. I was like, oh God, like, what are these, like how you reacted about Diogo. But having stepped away from the episode and thinking about it, what a great character he was.
Oh, yeah.
Not only just the acting was perfectly capturing that, but it just makes the tragedy of Philip all the more, because this is what Philip wants to be and he can't, and so he kills it. That is the episode. That is the large amount of it. There's little bits and pieces that they're teasing or acknowledging, such as the Rocinante has footage of the Martian ship getting eaten by the red goo at the end of the last season. There's little strands here and there, but that is Strange Dogs. What would you rate this on a scale of Yum being bad and Yum Yum being good?
Oh, it's an easy yum yum.
Yum yum.
We haven't really said anything negative about it, so I don't think the yum yum is a surprise to any of the yumlings listening. Like, it is a really solid opener. It's building on the back of everything before it. I'm really invested in our characters and interested in the plots. I don't feel like I know where it's going.
I give this a hearty yum yum.
Yum yum.
What are they giving to us next time on The Expanse? What's the name of the next one?
Azure Dragon.
That's the name of the spotter ship that they believe it's the name of the spotter ship. They had this weird way of saying, I think that's what it's like, that may be the spotter ship. So they did throw up this air of it may not be. What do you think is going to be happening in the next episode of The Expanse?
I think they're going to be going after it. I think Bobby's going to be tagging along or heading towards the Rossi. I think they might, next episode or in the future, cross paths with Drummer again. I feel like that's going to be part of it. I don't know how soon that's going to happen, but I feel like they're going to come together and work together, but not at the end of the season. So
it's always hard to guess what the next episode of a premiere is, because the premiere episode,
it sets up so many different things.
It sets up the season. So you're like wondering, well, is this what the season's going to deal with, or is this what the next episode's going to deal with? I hope Bobby does join them. But my biggest thing that I want right now, I'm impatient, and they may keep this from us for a while, but I want the conversation with Clarissa and Holden, or Clarissa and Naomi, but specifically Holden, because he was the target. He was the reason she ruined her own life. And we haven't had them really lock horns. It was played up as a joke at the end of the 5th season, and that was great, but now she's standing there working with them. I really need to at least have a moment between her and Holden. We haven't had that. And Naomi was the one that took up the mantle this episode against, like, she was on that took up the mantle and said, like, fuck Clarissa in this episode. And that's great. And Naomi not only is feeling that because of what happened to Jim, but because of what happened to her personally. But I really need them to have Holden confront the issue too. That's what I want. Do I think that will happen next episode? Not too sure. And I don't have much further predictions of what the next episode will entail. I think Christian is going to have to work with Monica, bring her in, get her to be what she needed Bobby to be, which is someone that is there to talk to, bounce ideas off of, but also challenge her. I would really love Monica to be brought into this season as the person that Christian interacts with. Those two characters, they would just gel well. But do you have any predictions for the rest of the season? Is there anything that popped up in the episode that you think, well, now I have a bit more, this could be what happens later?
I am still team Philip is going to betray Marco in some way. I know I keep on saying it because I still feel it. And it's like, yep, more stuff in this episode made me think that. I'm interested to see how they explore the impacts on Naomi and Holden's romantic relationship. I want them to deal with that aspect of it as well.
Do you think Naomi will see Philip again?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I hope. I don't know, but I hope.
I don't think they will be dealing with the interdimensional red aliens in this season.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think we're going to get that.
They did it in this episode in a way where it felt very much like they did last season, where it's like, that's later. Like, they're acknowledging that it exists rather than giving us more to go on. And that's, I was going to say fine, just as like an automatic response, but I don't actually believe that's fine. Like, the way that they went about the last season's epilogue really is tough to say, well, we aren't going to get any more.
Yeah.
I think Laconia will come up two more times, but it won't be a big force of like, we aren't going to deal with it, but it's going to be a reason.
Definitely not as much as Ellis was.
But I think it's going to be a background thing that motivates Marco and the others to kind of fight the way they are because, well, there is this other threat.
It's on the back burner.
And that's okay. That's okay in my eyes because even in this episode, it did help the plot move the way it needs to, with Marco being extra dickish because, well, there's this Laconia situation that we have to worry about in some way. Is there anything else? Season 6?
Nothing comes to mind right now.
Nothing comes to my mind either. I would really love, actually, they mentioned Ganymede being one of the places Marco has taken over. Mm-hmm. I would really love to know how Prax is reacting to that because he moved back to there to rebuild it and to start a new life and help the future, only for it now to be taken over by a tyrant. And I don't even need Prax to be here. I just want
to touch base.
I just like to know how he's handling that, or like what that means for him. Like, ideally, I would love Prax back in the show, and he has been forced to work for Marco's plans on Ganymede, because a huge problem Marco does have to eventually overcome is feeding people, because he destroys Earth, and that's where all of the resources kind of come from in a lot of ways, and Ganymede's already been fucked. So now he has Ganymede. I wonder if he'll force them to come up with like weird methods to be able to make grain and all of that stuff, because he said in last season or season 4, like, we have that sorted. We can sort that out. That will take time, but we sort it. And who's a character we know that operates with that stuff? Prax. Would love to see him come into the story in that way. I don't think it will, but maybe in the book even, I don't know. But that's it. That's our discussion on The Expanse. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you all so much for tuning in. Rachel, how about you take us out of here? Let people know where else they can find us and how they can contact us, and that they should rate and review the podcast and share it about.
A special thanks to our patrons, if they're still listening, because they got this episode first. And if you are listening on the main feed, can guarantee that if you sign up for our Patreon, you can immediately get access to the rest of our coverage of The Expanse right away. If you want to check out our socials, they are linked in the description, or if you search yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast, you will find us. If you want to email us,
You
then
can
send
do
it
so.
to yumyumpod@gmail.com.
All of this is in the description at your ready touch. You can just wave your little fingies over there and press all of the things and do all of the things and follow us on all those things.
Take a
And
moment to appreciate the gaunt belter and the thumbnail, because I know Ryan's
I did
doing
it.
that.
I did it. It's the thumbnail. I just also want to say a hearty fuck you to the doubters and haters out there. We have gotten comments saying, let the Gaunt Belter go. He doesn't come back. Let the Gaunt Belter go. No one cares. No one likes the Gaunt Belter. You guys and your attachment to... Fuck you and the horse you rode in on because we were right to care. We have this uncanny ability to sniff out bullshit and seemingly unimportant things that will get a callback later. Not only are we surprisingly good at predictions, and that I don't give a shit about being right about predictions in that way. I give a shit about being right about Havelock not mattering and the Gaunt Belter actually coming back. That's what's important to me. Ashanti will be in the season.
I was waiting for it. You didn't mention her when you mentioned Christian losing her husband, and I was just like,
well, she's still
is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? He's got to do it. He's got to do it. He's got to do it.
Okay, the season will end. You don't even know. The season will end with grandson number 1 throwing a water balloon at Christian and her crying. That's how we end Christian. Nailed it. And he says, my name is, and then cut to black. We don't get his name. And then he's credited as grandson number 1.
I thought it was going to be, throws the water balloon and it hits his mum.
Ashanti? Oh no! She wouldn't allow that. She's much too pure.
Now Earthers know what it feels like to be Belter.